Right, so the question is, can you simplify 8n plus 5? Can you combine those? No. This is a variable. This is a number. They're two separate things. You cannot put them together. We know that. So let's say we have 10 dogs plus 4 cats. Let's say that's what Amy has. And she brings them over to Beth's house, who has 3 dogs and 2 cats. Well, what overall do we have? Well, we're going to count and put together like things. In this case, the like things are dogs, 10 of them and 3 of them. So we have 13 dogs. And then we have what? 4 cats and 2 cats, which gives us a grand total of 6 cats. And we know we can't put the dogs and cats together. They're separate items. They're separate things. We only can combine things that are exactly the same. So here, when I want to put things together, does anybody combine? Well, I have 4a and 6a. Those will combine. There's no other a's. How many total a's do we have? Well, that's 10 a's. You have 3b. Are there any other b's? No. So it's just plus 3b. And then you have the number 5. There's no other numbers to put it together with. So that's what we get when we simplify that expression. If we come here, we see a lot of n's, n squareds, and n cubes. Well, with this 2n squared, who's going to match with him? Are there any other n squareds? Yes, this will go with him. Well, what about n's? Here's 3 n's. Who will go there? Well, he combines with 5 n's. And finally, n cubes with n cubes. So we're going to put this all together. We're going to go ahead and put the most powerful highest exponent first, which are the n cubes. So we'll put the 4n cubed minus an n cubed is 3n cubed. We then are going to put the n squareds together. So you have 2n squared and 6n squared, which gives you 8n squared. And then finally, 3n and 5n gives you 8n. And that's as simple as it gets. You can't simplify it anymore. Let's look at this. We have an ab squared and then an a squared b. You got to be careful here. 2ab squared. Do we have any other ab squareds? Well, I see one here. Those others are not. Those are a squared b's. So we're going to put the 2 and the 7 together. If you have 2 of something plus 7 of it, you have 9 of the AB squareds. Well, what do we have here? Are these the same? You have A squared B, A squared B's. Yes, they're the same, so we can put them together. 3 of something plus 4 gives us a grand total of 7 of that item. So that's how we put those together, and that's simplified. That's as simple as it gets. Now, let's say we have this. We have the quantity n, or the sum of n and 3, that total quantity, times the n plus 10 quantity. How do we do this? Well, here's what I like to think about. Okay, they try to teach you all these rules. What we're going to do is think of it this way. Imagine here's Mr. Hickam, and he's out on a date with Mrs. Hickam. Okay, they're a couple. Now they run into Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith. Now, as I see them, even though in today's age we stay away from one another, let's pretend we're a year ago where I would see them and I would shake their hands. And Mr. Hickam would go, "Hey, Mr. Smith," and I would shake his hand. And then I would say, "Hey, Mrs. Smith," and I would shake her hand. So you have these shaking hands. What about my wife? Well, she's going to be like, oh, she's going to shake hands with Mr. Smith, and she's going to shake hands with Mrs. Smith. There's going to be a total of 4 handshakes that occur here. The same thing is going to happen when we're doing this binomial, n plus 3, times a binomial, n plus 10. This n is going to shake hands with that n, be distributed through to it. This n is going to be distributed through to that 10. Well, let's do that first. N times n is n squared. The n times the 10 is 10n. Now, what we're going to want to do is we want the 3, my wife, to shake hands here. So that's going to be 3n. And then she also shakes hands here with the 10, which is 30. Now we need to look at it and say, hey, of these 4 terms, do any of them go together? And the answer is yes. There's no other n squareds, but notice 10n and 3n can combine to give you 13n. And then 30 is just the number that's there. This is what they call in algebra usually FOIL. I'm not a fan. They call it FOIL because you're multiplying the front, then the outers, then the inners, and then the lasts. I don't like it. It only works if it's a binomial times binomial. It doesn't work when you're doing a binomial times a trinomial. And I think it's easiest just to sort of think, hey, you're distributing each of the pieces through. In this case, we're distributing that n through to each of the 2, and then we're distributing that 3 through to the 2. So let's say we have this. Notice I now have a binomial times a trinomial. So that idea of FOIL that you were taught doesn't do you any good. What we want to do is take this n and distribute it through here and there and there. It's like all of a sudden Mr. and Mrs. Hickam run into Mr. and Mrs. Smith and their son is with them. So I'm going to have this extra handshake right here with the son. Now also notice that the 3 is going to have to be distributed through to each of them also. This is going to give us a total of 6 terms. So let's see what we get. N times n squared is n cubed. N times 5n gives you 5n squared. N times the 6 is 6n. Now when I distribute the 3 through, 3 times n squared, 3n squared. 3 times 5n, 15n. 3 times the 6, 18. We got to come back and put things together that can be combined, combine like terms. There are no other n cubes, so it's just n cubed. 5n squared, 3n squared. So this and this can go together. That's 8. 6n plus 15n is 21n. And then you simply have the number 18. One more problem. So we have 2n to the 4th, that whole quantity squared, plus the quantity 3n to the 3rd, that squared. Squaring means I'm going to multiply it by itself. So I have 2n to the 4th times 2n to the 4th, plus 3n cubed squared means a 3n cubed times a 3n cubed. Well, when I multiply this, I can write it out. 2n, n, n, n times 2n, n, n, n. Over here is 3, n, n, n times 3, n, n, n. Well, this gives me 8. How many n's do you see there? You see 8 of them. I don't know why I said that 2 times 2 was 8. Hope you were paying attention. 2 times 2 is 4. And then we have n to the 8th. Plus, over here, 3 times 3, we have 9 into the 6. Now, can you put those together? No. One's an n to the 8th, the other's an n to the 6th. They're different things. You can't put them together. So this answer is all the way simplified for that problem. There you have it.